What's going on, guys? It's Stribbers and welcome to episode 41 of PGR2 Road to Platinum. So we've done 7 races in the Ultimate Series and we're going to be continuing that today with 4 more events, and they are all street races in this episode. So it'll take a little bit longer to get through because they normally take a little bit longer than any other type of event. So in the first street race we're going to go ahead and pick the Ferrari Enzo. Stockholm, 4 laps for this one. So let's get right into it. So there's 6 cars starting off on a straight, which means we can pass a few of these cars. The Celine just gets out of the way there, and got the Porsche, which is quite slow in a straight line. So there's really only 2 cars we've got to worry about here, which is the Zonda and the Enzo, which is in first place, all in black I might add. Nearly gets spun out by the Porsche there, but managed to hold it, get a nice exit of that corner and go on the inside of the Zonda. And the Ferrari goes well wide there, crashing, so we're already in first place. Only a few corners down in this race, so that's very nice indeed. A little bit technical actually, this one. It's possible to use the Koenigsegg to make it a little bit easier. As we'll see there, over uneven surfaces and over bumps, this car is very unstable at the low speeds anyway. As you saw there, I just completely spun out to the left, had to regain control and the Ferrari overtook me again. So that's a little bit annoying, but makes a more interesting race, I guess. So colliding with the barrier slightly on the inside of that corner, slowing us down. But then the Enzo's taking the complete wrong line in there, allowing us to go and get more speed on the way out. In the draft zone now, come into the final few corners, which he took a far too wide line and had to brake a lot. So they do take some questionable lines sometimes, the AI in this. I wasn't really pressuring him too much there, but he went way too wide. So we're on lap 2 of 4. Just got to maintain composure and not do anything stupid really, because that Enzo did brake at the start of the race, or the start of that lap, so he slowed down quite a lot there. So we should have a nice healthy lead now. Yep, 3.3 seconds. So that's nice indeed. And yeah, the Enzo is a bit strange at lower speeds. It's a little bit unstable, tends to power slide quite a bit, and doesn't have the pulling power of the Koenigsegg. So probably not the best one to use, as I've said. It's better on the Nurburgring. But I'll try and mix and match cars as best I can. Try and use as many as I can to do Platinum. So we'll just have to see how things go. But we're 4 seconds ahead now, taking that way too wide. You can take quite a lot of speed through there, but it is a little bit difficult to do. And coming around this corner, onto the straight section before the finish. It's a little bit hard to navigate these corners at full speed. You have to ease off the throttle sometimes so you don't hit the outside of the barrier or something. But you can fly through here, really using the Enzo's top end acceleration. Very nice indeed. Coming to this hairpin section again, taking it nice and close to the apex. So yes, just got to keep driving as we're doing. As you see, the AI are miles behind on this. Some of these street races are very difficult, and the ones that are more difficult usually involve racing against the Koenigsegg. As I've said, it's such a beast on these tracks because of its low end acceleration that it really makes the race harder. And sometimes you can't really even do it in the Enzo, as I just completely messed up that corner, but we carry on. Yeah, but if you see a Koenigsegg on one of these circuits, it's probably best to use the Koenigsegg as well to be able to try and keep up. And later on in the races we have to go against the Mercedes CLK and also the Porsche GT1, which makes things a lot harder as well, especially on these narrow circuits. So the Koenigsegg is probably the better choice there again. And then of course anything with the Nurburgring, I tend to favour the Enzo. And I'm really not having the best race here. I just keep colliding with all the barriers. Yeah, the further in the lead I am, the more I relax and I don't concentrate very much. which tends to lead to me crashing a lot. But I'm not really bothered, to be honest. I'm not really after those clean races too badly, more so the platinum medals. But if we can keep increasing the lead, it's always nice. And what must have happened is the Enzo must have slipped into third, I'm guessing, and something else is overtaking it that's slower than the Enzo, which is usually what happens. You know, when I said before that the AI drive better in the higher positions, doesn't matter what car it is. So, say the Celine or the 4GT got ahead of the Enzo, they'd probably keep that position because they don't tend to overtake each other too much. And then the car behind would drive slower, so that would allow you to pull away from the car in second place. We'll see when we cross the finish which one it is. I'm pretty sure it won't be the Enzo because we wouldn't be pulling away this much. 8 seconds. So it's a bit of a strange mechanic of the game. That it's not very even towards the cars, but I took that corner a lot better there. Crossed the line for the first street race down. Getting the fastest lap as well. So it's the Zonda. The Zonda overtook the Enzo and it is a bit slower, so you could see we kept pulling away. So that's the first one down. And none of these street races are short, unfortunately, so it is going to take a while to get through these. But we will use a different car. We'll go for the Zonda this time. In a blue there, looks quite cool. I don't think I've ever seen a blue Zonda. It's usually in that grey silver colour or black. But on this race, the AI immediately goes to the left hand side. So your best bet is going to the right hand side just to get out the way of all that. Then we've got this long sweeping left hand corner with another blue Zonda there. And I think there's 2 Enzos up in the lead there. So the Zonda's not the quickest in higher speeds to the straight line, but we managed to do a nice flick after landing there and get past most of the cars. And then the first Enzo brakes a lot, which allows us to overtake it before the slalom section. So that was a very nice set of corners there, nice and smooth, overtaking them. So I'm quite happy about that. Just leaves us now, like the other race, it's going to be a theme this, literally overtaking everyone on the first couple of corners and then just trying to get the best lead we can. But you can drive this circuit pretty quick. It's just this corner you've really got to be careful with. As you see, I just about got away with it that time. Just scraping the side of the wall. But yeah, you can take that at speed, but you have to get the angle exactly right, otherwise you will crash into the barrier. And this section you can drop, and as soon as you drop, start turning to the right, and you can get a nice little power slide going there, nice controlled one. Usually, if you start turning before you lift off, you tend to go sideways in mid-air, which is never a good thing. But I took that other corner very badly there, very wide. Getting used to the brakes with the Zonda. They're not quite as good as the Enzo's. The Enzo's brakes are very good. So we nearly spun out there and paid the price by not learning my lesson from the first lap and hitting that barrier. And as you can see, we damaged the bonnet / boot, whatever function it has of this car, and it's now acting as a front air brake for us, so that's good. We've improved the car by crashing. See there, look, braking in midair, slowing us nicely down. But yeah, the cosmetic damage on this game is pretty cool, to be honest. I think it was one of the first games to include cosmetic damage, or at least have it to a pretty impressive degree. Because we've got number plates falling off and all sorts. You can really tell if you've had some big damage to your car, which is cool. It's a nice feature. And let's see if we can take this better that time. That's much better there. Front air brake deploying again. There we are. Does look quite funny. Mostly happens on supercars, obviously, when they have that that front boot if they're mid-engined or rear-engined. But yeah, we'll come over this section again, see if we can do this nicely. Very tight to the inside there. That was probably my best time I've done that. Not losing much speed through there at all. And I've always loved the look of the Zonda. That quad exhaust with the circle round it's really unique. Don't really see many cars looking like that. Makes it look like a bit like a jet fighter or something crazy. But we're coming round for the final lap now. As you can see, we've got a massive lead. Again, doing that corner better this time. That might have been one of my fastest laps actually. And just getting hung up on the barrier a little bit there, but overall not too bad. I think this is only the second time I used the Zonda in this playthrough. But it's pretty good, to be honest. It's no nonsense, doesn't slide too much, nicely planted, decent brakes, decent low end acceleration. Pretty weak towards the top end, but on these circuits it's quite cool. And I've just realised my right wing mirror is actually looking a bit sad there from that impact. I don't know if they actually break off or if they just bend like that. But that one impact has ruined my car a little bit. Luckily it's only cosmetic. But we've got a couple easy street races there that we've just done. Flying through. There's not much to commentate on in terms of exciting racing, but nevertheless, 3,400 kudos, 6 seconds ahead of the Enzo, so I can't complain. 8,400 altogether. So that's 2 out of 4 street races done. And now we move on to a more complex street race in, I think that was Hong Kong. I'll have to have a look. But I like using the Carrera GT for this race. Just because it's more stable, better around lowered speed corners, that sort of thing. So you can use any car you like through here, but I like the cornering ability of this car. It's not the quickest in the straight line, so you will get dropped in certain sections, but it has very good turning circle, and you can take these tight corners very nicely indeed. Hitting the barrier there, so losing the clean race straight away, which is a bit annoying. But again, getting hung up on the barrier there. Not having the best start to the race, but I'm just getting the feel for the car. It's always difficult chopping and changing cars because you can't remember exactly how they handle. Taking that nicely on the inside of the Zonda, but then getting spun by him slightly. Come around this corner, so we have got the Koenigsegg and the Enzo to try and get. Luckily, there's not too many sections on this where the Koenigsegg can really wind up and start pulling away, which is why it's nice to use the Porsche on this. And it doesn't handle brilliantly, the Koenigsegg, so that leaves us a lot of room to catch up through the corners. So we'll go for the move here, dart on the inside, a little dab of the handbrake to get that turning round properly, which leaves us in second place behind the Enzo, and we can see the difference in the straight line speed here, as it is dropping us slightly there, but then having to brake a lot for that corner. That's quite difficult to take actually. It's easy to lift off over that crest and then crash into the left hand side. So you've got to take that a little bit slower, that one. But taking these nice and smooth. As you can see the Enzo just crashing into there, because it does tend to understeer a little bit. Just need to find our moment to overtake it on a corner. It's not going to happen on the straight. So we'll have to find that place. So we're right behind him now. Again, even with the drafting now, not going to be able to get that speed to overtake him. So just got to stick with him best as we can. We're going to go for it here. Round the outside. Neck and neck there, but just about managing to get in front. And then crashing into the barrier, but it doesn't matter because we are ahead of him. So we can defend now. As long as you're ahead, you can always defend, and we did slow him up quite a bit there, so that's good for us. From around this hairpin again, sliding into it to turn that car around, so we can easily accelerate out. So now let's test if we can actually pull away using the GT, the Carrera GT. So 1.6 seconds ahead, and just need to see if we can start pulling away there. Did get a bit of oversteer there, and a little bit too much power put on there. That is one downside to the Porsche, which is useful in the cone challenges, as it does power slide at lower speeds, but it can catch you out sometimes if you put too much power down at once. The back end will really step out. But like I said, we've just got to keep the lead, and it's good using different cars. So this is my third car I used in this this episode. Change things up a bit. Different cars have different strengths for each kind of track. And this is where you'll find that some of the more unusual cars, or cars you wouldn't normally use, come into play in these sort of races, where it's not all dependent on acceleration which in PGR, to be fair, most of it is geared towards acceleration. Doesn't matter how the car handles, if it hasn't got the acceleration, it's just going to fall behind. Getting a bit of understeer there, or I might have just been going over the crest and accelerated, so I couldn't turn there. So that's a bit of a bad corner, but never mind, we're still quite far ahead. Into the 4th lap. So we doubled our lead in that 1 lap. We were 1.5 seconds ahead, or roundabouts, and now we're 3.3. So that's good. So that'll just leave, if we can hold on to this, just one more street race down. And these take a lot longer than the Nurburgring ones. That is, apart from the very last event, which is going to have to be an episode in itself, because it's just going to take far too long to do that track. 2 laps of the Nurburgring for the final event, which can be anywhere between 6 and 7 minutes for a lap, really. I think people can get under 6 minutes, but I'm probably not good enough to do that, to be honest, without really studying the track. 4.2 seconds behind, so we're pulling away each lap, each section. So it's a bit underrated, this car, because I've used it for Cone Challenges and for this race, and I've never heard people talking about this one, but it's a nice little one to use. Very easy to drive, I'd say. Very planted. Coming across the line for the final lap now. Don't think we're going to get caught, or hopefully not. So yeah, my plan after completing the Kudos World Series is to try the arcade mode out. I've heard a lot of things about it being very difficult on Platinum, so I will try my very best to succeed in all the events, no matter how long it may take. Yeah, I've heard it's quite a bit harder than the Kudos World Series, but it's going to be interesting to try and sort that out. There is time attack mode as well, so I could use each car to try and set a time round the lap. Some of them are lap specific, I think, and some of them are car specific, sorry, and some of them are circuit specific. But I don't think that's going to be interesting enough to watch. You don't really want to see me driving around with no target to beat, just driving around trying to get the quickest lap I can. So I'll probably just do the arcade mode and then think about moving on to the next PGR. I'm going to play PGR 3 and PGR 4, and depending on how well they go down, I could play PGR 1 as well if enough people wanted to see that. But that's another fairly easy race down. A little bit more difficult to the start, but we managed to get past the Ferrari and there was no problems after that. 3.7 seconds behind, pretty comfortable. Moving swiftly on to the final race, Yokohama, and this is definitely the hardest one out of the episode. I fully recommend using the Koenigsegg in this one. In the other races we did, you could use pretty much any car, but there are 2 Koenigsegg's in this. There's 8 cars in the whole race, but there's 2 Koenigseggs that we can see in front of us that start to get ahead, and if they're the 2 cars leading the pack and you're not in the Koenigsegg, you're most likely going to get dropped due to some of the straights on this circuit. But we get incredibly lucky there by overtaking everyone on practically the first corner. It's pretty luck orientated how well you can get round the corners, or the first few corners, because it can make a huge difference to your race. As you can see there, everything went right. I didn't get spun out from a different direction, and I was able to cut on the inside and go around everyone else that was fighting. But it doesn't always play out like that. Most of the time you will get caught up in that middle pack, and you'll have to try and fight your way through. You may end up getting spun out. And worst case scenario, the first couple cars will get ahead, making it very difficult to catch them up. So it's almost worth having to restart it depending on how that first couple corners go, I'd say. You know, if you're struggling to get past 7th and 6th place by 3rd or 4th corner, I'd say maybe restart, because you're only going to take more time to do that race and not have an outcome out of it. So it's best to try and get the best start you can, because more likely than not they will eventually spin each other out on that first corner, leaving you a nice little gap to go through. So we are 2 seconds ahead now of the next car, which I didn't actually see which one it was. Whether it was the Enzo or the Koenigsegg, I didn't see. But if it was the Koenigsegg, it usually gives you a little bit more of a hard time than the Enzo does. Obviously because of its matched acceleration. So we'll have to see which car is directly behind us. Only 1.3 seconds now. If it's the more technical section that they're catching us up on, it's probably the Enzo, because that is better through those sorts of sections. So we'll have to have a little look. Going a bit too wide, not wide, a bit too close, sorry, to that apex there. Not really following the right line. And I think it is the Enzo behind us. This section's a little tricky to go through, as you have to brake before the little crest of the hill there, otherwise you will lift off and go a little bit too wide on that corner. Coming down the straight bit, I think they've done a great job of these buildings on the right hand side there. They look pretty decent, even in this old game. Some of the scenery in this this track is looking pretty cool, especially at night. But taking that nice and smoothly through there, getting a little bit of oversteer, nearly spinning out. And taking that way too wide and completely losing it. So that is how you don't do that corner. And the Enzo is right behind us now, probably going to go for the move on this corner. Goes for the pit manoeuvre, but fails. And is he going to go for a second bite? No. Just about stay ahead of him there. Could have been a lot worse, but managed to avoid the manoeuvre he was trying to pull there. The dive bomb, I think he calls it. Back to a second ahead now, actually hitting the barrier, but that does rebound us in the right direction, allowing us to take the corner okay there. Coming around the hairpin section again, that's a much better line through there, allowing us to accelerate properly on the way out. Because the narrow line is a bit, well, it's a bit harder to get the speed on the way out. So he's still within a distance to try and make a move on us, just under that second. Not too comfortable at the moment, but still trying to pull away from him. Definitely the harder of the 4 street races, this one. And luckily it's not the Koenigsegg that's directly behind us, or the one that got away. As soon as the Koenigsegg start to get away, it's very difficult to catch them due to their crazy speed. But let's see if we can take this a little bit better that time. Easing off, going on 2 wheels, stopping us turning a bit, but overall that's a much better line through there. 1.9 seconds behind. So getting a little bit of a lead through that straight bit. Having to up my game at this point, trying to get away as best I can. Very easy to get a bit complacent if you're too far ahead, and before you know it they're less than a second behind you again, and yeah, in the range to do the pit manoeuvre / torpedo into you. Not the most intelligent computers in this game, or maybe that's just their style. But not too much of the race left to go before we can claim that next platinum medal. Again, braking before the crest there, trying to keep to the inside of that corner, then full acceleration through here. 2.5 seconds, so we are just about building that lead back up again, which is nice. So we have, to be fair, even though it's more of a difficult street race, we've been in the lead for majority of these 4 street races. So they're definitely not the most difficult ones. The hardest street races I've done so far are probably the ones in the American Muscle Series, because I really don't like that Chicago track or any of those Chicago tracks. They're very difficult to race, but we have completed the platinum medal, position bonus there, and fastest lap. 3,700 in-game kudos, which is brilliant. 3 seconds behind was the Enzo, and a nice little amount for doing that. And that is going to be the end of this episode, guys. Very long episode, but nevertheless it's out of the way now. So in the next episode we've got Cone Challenge, a street race, and another Cone Challenge and a street race, which is pretty similar to the episode before the one we've just done. And then that leaves not many events left at all, guys. So I hope you enjoyed, guys. If you did, please like the video and consider subscribing if you're new, if you want to see more content. And I'll see you next time.